Your mic is mute.
Hello, good night.
Good night, Miss Faith. Your mic is mute. Your mic is mute.
I don't know if it's this phone instrument, Mr. Brackett, if it's me.
No, your one is okay, Miss Faith.
He was talking to me just now, Sharon. My mic was
Good night.
muted.
Yes.
Oh, good night.
I was introducing Miss Spitz and she disappeared on me, and then Greg showed up, so I was speaking to Greg, and then apparently my mic was muted, so I'm not sure if he heard what I was saying. I was saying to Greg, first of all, welcome to the show, and I was hoping that he would introduce himself formally. Uh, I'll turn the mic over to Greg, and then subsequently I'll go back to Miss Spitz for her introduction. Greg?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're
Good
welcome,
night
sir.
to you, Miss Faith. It's always a pleasure sitting virtually
Yes,
with
good
both
night
of
to Billy.
you as co-hosts. I want to welcome the people at home and abroad to this our 202nd episode of Belizean Affair. With that said, I turn it to you, Miss Faith, to introduce yourself.
Sharon?
Good night. Are you hearing me well?
Yes, very well, very well.
Okay, so Mr. Greg was asking me,
No, he wasn't asking. He was turning over the show to you for your introduction.
oh, I see.
He
Good
was just
night, Belizeans at home and abroad, and friends of Belize. And I want to commend you gentlemen, Mr. Brackett and Mr. Brackett and Mr. Wade, on your commitment and consistency, so much so that you have reached that hallmark 200, the 200th airing. And I know that it's a lot of sacrifice and dedication, and that you have to be free thinking people and address and respond to the needs of the voiceless in Belize. And as Mr. Gould used to say, that even Belize, a country, not just our people have rights. Our country has rights too. Belize has rights. And it's the duty and responsibility of every Belizean citizen to defend the rights of Belize. And more so those who are navel string Belizeans, salt of the earth Belizeans. And especially when things are such that you see there are a lot of fires to put out. Belize seems sometimes to be under siege from all, in all senses of the word. And this heritage, which Samuel Haynes invoked in the national anthem, apart from that God's goodness gave this land to us to honor and obey, I believe in the words of patriot Edward Percival York, Samuel Haynes wrote, "Nature has blessed thee with wealth untold," and went on to pen words, "this heritage hold," and that it seems to be the timeless mandate, the ever-present mandate of all Belizeans as a part of our country and as a part of humanity. So I want to thank you, and I believe that it must not go without, there might not have been a birthday cake or some ice cream being shared, but for Belizean, we just had the anniversary of our country's historic Battle of St. George's Key and then our independence. So we as a people and a country must ever be proud to continue to be a part of the world with our example to humanity and what it is that we as Belizeans stand for and stand up for. Thank you all very much.
You're welcome, Sharon, and thank you very much for the
Thank
lucid
you, Miss B.
presentation. And just like to ask that Greg would probably, if he has available a song or something to play for us in the interim for about a minute. Is that possible, Greg? Greg?
I'm hearing you, Mr. Chairman, but you're kind of low, and I have my volume turned up probably.
Uh, could you play us a short musical prelude or something?
Yes, I can.
I'd appreciate that very much.
Okay, gentlemen, you ready? 1, 2, 3.
Thank you very much, Greg. That was very lovely. I enjoyed that one. Initially, uh, when I first launched the program, I was making some commentary as regards to some. I was making some commentary in regards to some unconstitutional behavior by the people to whom we have entrusted our governance power. That is that they had proceeded to acquire private property under the false pretext of acquiring it for public interest under the public domain acquisition of property. Now, the government cannot of itself stipulate that to be the fact. They have to take that matter and should take that matter from cabinet to the house, and then the courts should be involved to make that final decision under section 20 of our constitution in regards to whether or not that acquisition was duly and constitutionally or correctly acquired. Because the government cannot just arbitrarily and capriciously make a stipulation that they deem something to be of national importance, and therefore under that criteria they are going to use the powers of eminent domain to facilitate a foreign company to acquire the property of a local Belizean by deception. That is that the local Belizean has a company or has an interest and property that the government is going to steal from that local Belizean and facilitate a foreign entity to come into possession of that property by the government using itself as a middleman to acquire that property under the false pretext of eminent domain, which is not proper, to turn it over to another entity. Making it worse, it's a foreign entity, not even another local Belizean per se, which would be bad enough. But it has to be facilitated to another foreign entity to whom or some of our government officials have interest embedded, as it was the same as acquiring that piece of land for the hospital when they had already had the land issued, or the Prime Minister himself had previously stated that the land was already issued to government and was already surveyed and available to government, but yet he will allow people inside of his department to bring a proposal to him to buy this piece of land close by the sewage place for an exorbitant amount of funds, to whom some of those people had interest along with the people that they were procuring this land from. That is malfeasance in governance. And I'm saying that it's a violation of the Constitution in more ways than one. For the government to have gone ahead and pretend to have acquired Mr. Feinstein's private property, and then the government takes turnarounds under the false pretext for which they claim that they acquired the property and give it to a foreign entity to facilitate that foreign entity, and then turn around and break the agreement that we have with the Subabon people for the new entity to be able to dredge or reef and cause problems to our reef and cause problems to that Subabon agreement. In other words, not only is the government losing money or using our government money and our government powers to facilitate an investment that has some nefarious contacts, but they're facilitating our Superbond probably being called back by these people. In other words, they're insulting these people. Okay? And this is not the first or last time. But for right now, having said what I had said before, I'm repeating it now because my two panelist members were not on the show at the time when I was making those comments, and for their benefit, I wanted them to hear what I had said. Therefore, I went on to repeat it because I would like to hear what comment they would have in regards to those matters. Go first, you, Greg, for your. I think we had dealt with this particular matter before, and therefore I'd like for you to take the opportunity to further your comment on that, and I'll go to Ms. Pitts.
Thank you,
As soon as,
Mr. Brackett.
yes, sir.
There is a whole lot of scenarios that is wrong with this compulsory acquisition. First of all, let me say this, and I will run the banner at the bottom so that people can see it. The government using compulsory acquisition in the name of the people should have only been done if it was going to be paid by taxpayers' money. That is one of the first agendas. Secondly, the government, and speaking specifically about the Prime Minister, he had said that he would not get involved into private entity business. And we do have a tape on which he said that. But I would like to go to the act that was created 2014 and amended in 2017. There's a section in it that specifies, and I have it showing at the bottom and the screen banner, non-exclusivity. Number 8. It is declared that nothing in this act shall be construed as making the facility the exclusive cruise port for the Belize district. With that said, the government at the time when this act was amended was specifying that he will use other options, and as Belizean we saw what happened. There were two other ports that the government was more than extending his assistance to until they fell apart. Then here we are, he's trying to use compulsory acquisition after he, for 4 years or more, did nothing to try to help the Feinstein group, I believe then, and I have to put that out there, to accomplish their port. With that said, before I go any further, I will turn it to Ms. P.
I'm sorry I am not in a position to be as incisive as I would like to be, but I want to make the observation. As a citizen, it seems to me that what Belizeans was understand and focus on is that we have our commonwealth. Under our law, we have the right to access of the four shores and that body of water between what should remain public domain, right of passage, and so on, for all the people of Belize. What is really a problem, and to my mind is disquieting, is that it seems that we have governments which are prepared to pass private interest statutes. They go to parliament, it seems, and pass private interest laws. And you'll hear the usual, well, it will create more jobs, it will this, it will that, income, and so on. I will use a colloquial. A friend once said, you don't take sand to the beach. If we have our land, or sea, or rivers, or streams, or inland, or flora, or fauna, or reef, and all the natural bounty, why is it that we keep doing things the wrong way, which is tantamount to allowing people to come from abroad? And remember that term, I don't know if they refer to it much, get dead raised. Then come here with so-called ideas and so on, and sometimes I believe that they are imported. They're imported. And they come to Belize, and it seems Belize is, for some reason, word has gotten out that they can come here or can be imported by their partners in commercial complicity against the interests of the people and country of Belize. And I've said this over and over. Look at it. When these people deal with their own personal private land in Belize, they're fastidious, watertight. They're no ramp, they're no play. When it comes to matters and land which within the public domain and the public trust and all of the rights of ways, we as a people see we have smart people in Belize, we have professionals, we have people with elder oral history and know-how, we have every alphabet union, it seems, Why is it that we are not able to say and get the message across clearly that the stance of the people of Belize is and remains that these portions and parcel in part and in whole, which have to do with our common wealth, our assets, our national dignity and pride, we will not continue to see. We have not elected people in government to preside over the partitioning and parceling out of our country and the fencing off, because when you're dealing with ports and so on, I mean, how dare they say that it's not meant to give exclusive port in the Belize district? So then I would say when they pass a law or sign another agreement, if they don't put that in clearly, are we to infer that for the next one coming along, the next one would be able to say, or the one we're gone before the Tara one would be able to say, we did not have this restriction in it. So when you look at that and contrast or compare, surely in that it was unspoken, you know, they make mischief with it and so on, and to our detriment. I have said over and over and over, land port, seaports, and airports have to do with patrimony, national interests, security interests, open-ended revenue. The people of Belize have not authorized anybody to play around with under the guise of elected leaders or not. We have the electorate, the protectorate, and the directorate. But the whole of Belize, we as a people, it is incumbent to us to be the protectorate for Belize. Protect Belize for present and future generations. When it gone, and we'll be sucking our sorrows more and more and more. So to my mind, when you're dealing with ports, those should remain public and for future, and you can do organic development as your country grows with it. We have enough people at home and abroad who have the brain power, the intelligence, the experience, and as well, we have enough countries in the world that we can look to and see what has gone wrong, look at their methodology, and Belize can say, we are in our infancy, but our country will not be prostituted.
I am not hearing you at all, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, it was unplugged. It was unplugged. So sorry about that. I think I need to repeat myself a little. I was saying, after Ms. Pitt's wonderful commentary just now, I was saying that our country of Belize deserves better than what we are getting. And in my preliminary commentary, I have stipulated that tonight's show may accrue some public benefit to our listeners, those at home and abroad, those who listen now live on the program, and those who may yet listen at their own convenience later on. I had promised that tonight's show would have been one of those that some positive benefits would be had. And as I'm listening to the show, as we move along, I'm becoming convinced that my promise is being vindicated. As per the comments of Ms. Pitts, as well as the comment of Mr. Brackett, Gregory, to say that what we are talking about here tonight is very important to the rest of our country and its people. Yes, there are those who are inclined to jump on the bandwagon, or as they'll say, the train of the present government in power and stay on track. But that track is not leading our country to its best possible foot being put forward. That track is leading our country to a state or a situation where our patrimony is being hauled and pulled and divided up and given to people who can produce some assets on the front end, so some politically connected people can derive some immediate benefit and additional benefits thereafter. In other words, Belize is not for sale, but that is how it's being run today. And unless we Belizeans get up and demand of our government that they be accountable, that they stop all these shenanigans that they're doing, giving out taxes to favored individuals or companies or entities in the tune of millions of dollars, while we suffer the inconvenience of not having enough resources to pay our teachers and pay the rest of our wage bill and for services and goods. We need to have the people become more seriously in touch with these realities. It can't be in Belize that Belizean people are only interested to come out for election and vote for somebody who gives them $50, one plate of food and one 2 beer, and let them repeat that cycle every 5 years. We have been independent 40 odd years already. Why are we still acting like a bunch of infants who are docile, unable to protect ourselves, unable to fend for ourselves, unable to look out for ourselves in any which way possible? That we have to wait for every 5 years for somebody come push something in our hand to say, take this, go. Get out of my face. I don't want to see you after this. And then they take all patrimony and country and powers of governance and ransack for we country and, and all the natural assets, we ability to be able to money make. Anything that has any money making schemes attached to it, they want to take over or control, and not for our benefit. They break our constitution, they go and make bogus laws to so-called empower themselves or to create immunity for themselves, and then leave the people hanging without the remedies that we need to put in place to govern us adequately. I would like to go back and say, Ms. Spitz, please, could you take another 5 minutes and elaborate on your previous or your first commentary? Just a little bit more.
Yes, basically, under our law, under the common law that we have, you have public access and rights of ways, the right to our shores. Elders would speak generally about that 66 feet right of way. And there are some technical ways in which that is calculated from the low tide or high tide and so on and so forth. But that has to do with in front of rivers and so on, and your seafront.
The riparian rule.
Riparian right, yes. Riparian. That is the technical word. It's a legal word. They are riparian. Basically, that's it. And Mr. Brackett, you mentioned eminent domain as well. Now, eminent domain has to do with this being Belize and this being our country. So for the government, remember it's Belize as a whole, and we the people collectively own Belize as our commonwealth. But that goes with collective responsibility. Remember, you not take your gift and squander it and throw it to the swine like the biblical warning against it. Remember when the man in the Bible gets tricked and something with the birthright, they exchange it for something. So everybody know from age old time to know we have a lot of good examples. So with respect to eminent domain, certain things like the oil and mineral and the top of the land, that still belong to government and to all of us. We're not for government in parliament, you know. So I prefer not say government. It's a part of the parcel. The whole of it and each part of it cannot be divided out, cannot be transferred out. It's a part of our patrimony, the public trust, the commonwealth of the people and country of Belize. And it carries with it that responsibility now and in the future, the intergenerational, to hold on to this country. What is happening is that when it comes to, there's a land acquisition act, a statute for public purposes in Brackett, right? And not in Mr. Brackett, right after Mr. Brackett, but remember this, public purpose. That's bracketed in the law. Mr. Brackett has mentioned the supreme law of Belize. Under the law of God, we have our constitution. And in those other countries where the tribe pushed with to, we have a civil law system, the constitution there at the bottom. That's why then tyrants and despots, then people were don't want to give up power and rule for coming and rule by decree. That's what we call civil war. That's what we call tyranny. That's what we call, they don't got the rule of law. So we have this cherished tradition, which is a part of our Commonwealth parliamentary democracy. So the individual will have one piece of land or property, real property land or interest in land. Could be a license, could be a lease, it could be an equitable interest, an overriding interest, which doesn't have to be registered under the modern land registry on the face of the title.
Or development rights.
Correct. So, when government says to anybody, your land for which you have title or you have a right or interest equitable in the land, when anybody, government presents something as though they want to do it for public reasons, compulsory acquisition, compulsory meaning as though, as the word says, they are giving you notice pursuant to that act or propose to give you notice of compulsory acquisition. So the act might be cited and the purpose might be mentioned as well. Actually, should be. But it doesn't mean it stops there. The government might say, you know what? We will compensate you the reasonable value or the fair value, and the government might try to determine that or negotiate with you and say, or you could get in kind some other land or some other property instead. You change your barter. But it doesn't mean that because government says we are going it is or has served notice reciting any law, and it looks on the face of it and it's written in paper and signed by some functionary of government, some official, whether public officer or minister of government or the prime minister himself
Mm-hmm.
or one of his minions, that that is an edict and you have no right. Belize, remember, is a democracy. It is not an autocracy. And we are protected as a people and country against big hand government or the exigencies or hidden agendas. So that if it is the government, whether it's doing it for, in a hopscotch,
Mm-hmm.
remember I keep saying when they play hopscotch with our people and snake and ladders and so on, not even Chinese checkers, right? They might pretend that we're acquiring this so we could set up this industry or this business because that where you're located is prime and it will allow jobs and so on. It doesn't stop there. The
For
individual could say, the person doesn't have to give any reason as a matter of fact. I do not want to sell my land, and you can question by what authority. And as Mr. Leonard has said, because it is that it is, the government must act within the rule of law. The courts, under our separation of powers,
exactly
can be resorted to for a remedy. And the court has done that before
jurisdiction.
and will continue to do so, to scrutinize and look behind. So when John or Jane public, when Jesse or Jamie feel like the government are not convinced, or even if convinced, say, you know what, I not trust that. Make them wheel and come again. Draw it out. See what pretext and let them put the government or whoever has to put him or herself or that officer or that official in the position of being able to really show. And the person can hop even without going to court because it would be expropriation. It would be wrongful deprivation of property. It would be illegal. It would be
Miss
unconstitutional.
Miss Pitts,
And as Creole say, as Belize people say, wrong, 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 and they might they try dead race.
Miss Pitts,
Sometimes you will
before
see that
Miss
they let a little time pass or the way they do the operation.
Miss
Notice in Belize the pattern.
Miss Pitts, one little point before you move forward because there was something that I needed to throw in there.
Yes, sir.
You made a comment just now, and there was something that I needed was to add to it, and I was begging your forbearance to just let me
Sorry,
add.
I never noticed.
Yeah, that's all right, no problem. Um, when you mentioned just now about the how the court needs to come in and help to validate whether or not the government have the right to take that property, or the person does not want to give up their property, and therefore the government have to prove to a court that that taking of the property is a valid exercise of governance of governance powers in the interest or in a public interest, that they cannot come and declare that that's a public interest. It is for the court to make that declaration, not the government. The government does not validate legality. They are empowered to make laws in the legislature, but the government is authorized to follow those laws. They cannot come in and arbitrarily declare that, well, they're going to classify this as eminent domain, and therefore the powers of the state will be brought to bear on whoever is blocking that eminent domain facilitation. So what I was trying to say to you, though, or add to what you had said before, is that people have their rights, and unless with their acquiescence The government cannot and should not be trying to run roughshod over them, as in the case of this Feinstein issue. But I'll defer for a second because there was another point that I wanted to get to, and it's kind of passed me by because I wasn't able to interject at the time. I can't remember it quickly, and I don't want to abuse your kindness in giving me the chance to have said what I have said so far. I will yield back to you, Ms. Pitts, at least for another couple of minutes.
What
I
if
may,
the
Greg?
government, take the scenario, the hopscotching ways, right? The deviousness. And you notice with the company's registry now, you cannot necessarily get disclosure and scope who owns what.
Which is bogus. That process is bogus. And they did so
Okay.
deliberately
Why the
to
secrecy?
let people know.
Why the secrecy?
Ms. Pitts, Greg was trying to add something just now, I think, to what you had commented before. And if you don't mind, could you just give him a chance so he doesn't forget, or we don't go beyond the point, and when he brings it in, then it's not relevant anymore? If you mind.
Yes, please.
Greg, please. Can you recall the point that you was trying to interject just now?
yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
And
Ms. Pitts because I see
rightfully
you.
said, Mr. Fitzgerald did an awesome explanation of what is happening. But I wanted to speak about the act and the eminent domain.
Uh-huh.
Had they know they wanted to do this, they could have simply amended the act to say on this takeover, since it is a foreign entity, they could have amended to say that it will be in the people's interest. But since they have not done that, there are already precedent cases like the Boeing and Boeing, who bars them
Uh-huh.
from doing exactly what they are trying to do. And I will turn it back to
Greg,
you
Greg,
so
1 second on that same last point that you were. They have actually done some of that, you know. They have said that it's for public benefit. The Prime Minister himself stipulated that. But only in words, not in deeds. They have not gone through the practical procedures to make sure that they are following the law. He just stipulated that verbally when he was cornered. But when they go to the house, or when they go to, they are trying to bamboozle and power play the process, okay? And they're not following the rules, which is what the problem is all about. They could have, just as you said, proceeded to make an amendment, and then after, try to get the court to legitimize their act. But they wanted to do it without the court's input. The amendment, they didn't want to make no amendments. They just wanted to bullyrag the process by just making a declaration of what is it that they're intending to do. And they went ahead and did what they did without anybody demanding of them. You know, the teachers didn't cry foul. Nobody didn't cry foul. So they went ahead and just did what they had to do. And now they are in a position where they are declaring that, well, it's a done deal. It is never a done deal if the public is not brought into its proper process and the public acquiesce. Because the government is not governing on behalf of the people who we have sitting in government. They are governing on behalf of Belize and Belizeans and the people of Belize. They are entrusted with power to exercise on our behalf, not to have those powers that we entrust to them to use it against us and for their own heart content, which is what our problem is. But I'm sorry, Ms. Pitts, Greg was yielding back.
So you have two aspects of that. One where the private property owner, the government will say public interest, you know, they will quote that. But it's up to the private landowner or the people who are affected directly to say, you know what, I am resisting that, and let them know, read them the riot act, and then go to court if you know heal. The other side of that, though, Mr. Brackett, is that when government or anybody is saying, well, we're acquiring pursuant to the Land Acquisition Public Interest Act, members of the public, Jesse and Jamie public, Jesse and Jamie busybody knows if everything Belize must get together
Have standing.
and raise Cain
Mm-hmm.
and say, you know what, this is not really for the public interest, and the union should be hearing them and echoing them and rallying for them and saying on behalf of Belize
Mm-hmm.
that that's our sweetheart deal, that's a private interest. And if we not see now, I will see 2 years down the road, at the time it becomes patent, we can then challenge it. But with these things, it's usually that you nip it in the bud, because otherwise what will happen? Development and contract will go ahead. And I will suggest that a lot of times, maybe 150% of the time, when these so-called developments and projects reach the Belizean public ear, it is because they're already beyond where proposals with banks and financial institutions
Entanglements.
and venture capitalists and lenders and marketeers and whoever else out there
They have us in a
already
bind.
saw, you know what, Belize our pimpers paradise, we have come and rape and break and strip. Remember the bottom, the trawlers
Mm-hmm.
that they banned the Belize, then gill trawlers,
Mm-hmm.
when they used to put out their fishing thing. Belizeans understand that they used to span sometimes 100 miles with hooks.
Uh-huh.
This is how their people come like junk vulture to rake and scrape, and it will be in incipient poverty. Then, gentlemen, I will ask that later on, right? I just don't want to forget.
Uh-huh.
I might need some clarity, but I have a notion that the municipal council, the city council of Belize,
Uh-huh.
has indicated that it will sell, I don't know if at 200 or 2,000 lots for arrears of taxes, property taxes. And there's a thing in the US, you know, I think the revolution was founded on no taxation without representation. With respect to Belize and the municipality, how can you be selling people's properties when a lot of those properties aren't serviced? You have the junk voucher and the circle room. Where are the conscientious Belizeans who should be dealing with security of tenure? When the government and their minions and all the ABC agencies deserted Belize and left their desk without work and went to see Belizeans abroad. Why weren't Belizeans demanding as we had suggested? Where is the security of tenure project? Where is it that we who have land, you will put a moratorium on selling our land? You will give us some kind of tax credit or reprieve or relief. You will educate us on, you know what? This is how we can cut our land. This is what we can do. Maybe participate in a public service day for the municipality. There is something when you want to do things to ensure, and what they are doing is ripping people. They've gone for the jugular of Belizeans, while Belizeans don't play the carnival and the smoke and the drink and the rah rah rah. You have given them a stick to break your Belizean back. And
Exactly.
I'm not saying this for hyperbole, no exaggeration. How is it that a municipality can lay claim to being able to sell so much private property? People who, if you look at it, a lot of those people are descended from people who have served the public in Belize, who have served the nation of Belize. A lot of them were victimized politically and had to run abroad. They have people here who just by being here continue to serve. And if the Belizean American or the Belizean in England or the Caribbean or whichever part of the world, they have that as the piece of the jewel. even if it's overrun and need to beat the bush. Why is it that there's no good sense and good judgment and compassionate governance? The
Miss
city council is not in the business of breaking people's back to make taxes. They're taxing people out of Belize City. The parking meters, the businesses. You see Albert Street downtown? But you know what? It's because, as a good friend said, the five-star hotels are coming. They want to pressure the people. Where else in the world you have God has given us a backway sea from all over? A lot of sea from the estuary, the river mouth, going up to the Shiboon, with the canals, the watershed, the intermittent waters, the most fertile land in the country of Belize. You
thank you
know
very
what?
much, Miss
It's
Pitts.
because they take the land from the people. And this, while you talk about expropriation, this don't have a decent word for it. And Belizeans better get up because you know what? Right while you're sitting there, right, you're high or you're low or you're in between on whatever they have there to smoke or drink or party or too much pressure that people get. Don't be afraid, don't be embarrassed. People must know you go through hard times, you go through despondency. But that land, that piece of family land, it's real estate, limited, unique, each of it. And those lands carry our history and heritage of our people. And our people are not to be denied and ripped
Miss Pitts,
from
thank
our
you very much.
country and our
Yes, ma'am.
property.
Thank you very much
It
for
is
such a
happening,
great
Belizeans,
presentation.
and somebody has, people have to individually and collectively say, no, no, no.
Miss Pitts,
Put
I'd
a
like to make
stop
a
to
comment.
what City
I would like,
Council is doing. Wake up, Belizeans.
I would like to add a comment to just what you said just now, and my comment would be one of clarifying, probably maybe even in a Creole, for all for all intents and purposes. That is that what you're speaking to, Ms. Pitts, is a devious, nefarious, and evil practice carried out by both our mass party political organizations who have governed our country, and they have been doing this evil deed for decades, to the point where now each party, when they come into a city council, fosters the same illegal, inappropriate, and unconstitutional practices. That is to deprive people of their hard-earned assets, and especially for those who are going through hardships and who can't come up with their money to rebuild. They don't help them build unless they are politically connected. They don't help them take care of bills, but they can forgive hundreds of millions of dollars to big landowners, while they take away and expropriate small people with
Excuse me,
anything
Mr.
in
Brackett.
life. Go ahead,
Mr.
go ahead,
Brackett,
go ahead,
excuse me.
go ahead.
Why is it that our social security is being raided again? Why is it that it has not been, the message has not been loud and clear enough? Some debts are bad debts before they start. Why is it that private companies are going to social security? Why is it that $7 million cannot be put into the hospital of Belize so that the people who are insured and people who pay taxes, people who live and born here, who cannot go over the border for medicine or have helicopter or sky plane or whatever to go,
I'd like,
cannot go to the hospital for the service, the main hospital in Belize City, which is right next door to Social Security Board,
on
main
that
office.
on that point,
Why
Miss Pitts,
is it? Where is the, well, then people don't have conscience and decency.
on that point, Miss
But when
Pitts,
the union they
wait,
quiet
Miss Pitts,
again, then you see the trick. Sorry, Mr. Brackett, I
yeah,
want to
that's
say
fine.
this with the university land. Make us say this and I want to shut up.
Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
You see how the union, certain people certain groups get co-opted, they actually the help go through some kind of study or something to convince themselves, to convince the people at Belize as to why the university land was suitable. And they're going through soil tests, and they're going through swamp tests, and then saying
Miss
mosquito
Spitz,
test,
Miss
and
Spitz,
mosquito bite test,
can we
and
expound on that a
darkness
little bit?
test. Why is it? And then I had said it, and you gentlemen, I don't
Miss
know
Spitz,
where
Miss
they
Spitz,
come from.
wait, Sharon, just a minute. Can we
Hmm.
expound on that particular topic a little bit more? But can we just close off another point that preceded it quickly? That is that the government is currently making agreement under the NHI um, program to have private hospitals that they own bill for we local NHI for services rendered to people. When in fact those services were supposed to have been rendered according to the original proposal by the clinics and with local hospitals. They should have been the one to get that money to facilitate paying for the services and helping to develop within NHI throughout the country. Now they will have the private hospitals them rendering those services because they make the local Belizean hospitals them were owned publicly ineffective and inefficient, and they're not giving them enough funds to be able to operate properly. So people have to run to the private hospitals, and the private hospitals are going to be the one to milk the money from government under the NHI program. Why is that not cleared up by the media houses and everybody else in this country to let the general public know what is really going on?
Mr. Brackett, we had a crisis, an international public health crisis called COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
As elders were saying to me, back in the days when you had tuberculosis and public health crisis,
Mm-hmm.
and when you have national disasters by way of hurricane, natural phenomenon, you have it that government can commandeer private institutions, of course, because they have a property right. But you see, that's why you can declare a state of emergency, public health emergency. And then what you do, those private institutions would get compensated in due course. It is, though, as a matter of conscience and public responsibility. And it's not that anybody did not see it. And I would say health officials, government officials, people who have the history of certain things. The line between public and private response should have been blurred and supervened. You don't have hospital A, B, C fencing itself off and saying, you know what, we the save ourselves to deal with private people. And then the public hospital, when they say private people, they run out of money, they send them over. And it has happened to a doctor who had a situation that he was sent over to the public hospital. The point I'm making is that we should have had a national response, and they should have been able to commandeer a specific hospital and say that this hospital would have been the COVID response hospital with the quarantine, the concentration of resources and people. And then the general hospital, they call Houston Memorial Hospital, the mass casualty hospital, the only tertiary hospital, would have been left to run and continue to respond and as well supervise with oversight and man. And the public officials could have been working in tandem with the private doctors from these private hospitals, many of whom, well, they're doctors, so they're experts, but they have extraordinary expertise in public health, epidemiology, and so on. And as well, we have enough professionals abroad in medicine, health, etc.
who are
World
willing to
class
come
at
and
home
help.
in Belize, world class abroad, so that with telemedicine and so on, a Belizean who invented a lot of things with the telephone, Andre Gray, if I
Dr.
get the name
Boulward.
correct.
Dr.
People
Boulward
are
as well.
decrying him on a media, you know why? Because the black line, look like certain people come from abroad or from here. That young man, or close to middle-aged man, offered to design a medical response app and to gift it to the people and country of Belize to help
There,
to track
there
and
was no
deal
money
with
to be
COVID.
there
But
was
you
no
know
money
what?
to be
It
made.
was
That's why
that
they
it
didn't
had
want
to
it.
be from some foreign country.
Okay,
It
thank you very
cost
much,
us
Miss.
no money,
Uh,
It cost us.
Miss Spitz, Miss Spitz. One point. The problem that we have in Belize is that that private hospital was bought with our Venezuelan housing money, and not only we paid for that out of that housing money, we paid the interest on all the litigation that amounted from $20 million when it first started to $98 million by the time it was concluded and finally paid off. And we have not been able to get a service out of that hospital. But that hospital is now being put in position, as I said earlier in my statement, to reap the benefit of our NHI program according to their wishes. They're not going to be paid according to some regular standard practice norm.
Mr.
They're going to give
Chairman,
them
if I
payment.
may,
Go ahead, Greg. Go ahead. I yield.
I would like to answer to both of the topics. First, I will answer the one about the council and the land sales. This
It's a scam.
land sales that is happening, we have to look back at past and present government and see how we get where we are. Likewise, we are talking about medical professionals that believe do have living abroad. But how do we get caught up in this scenario? We are caught up in this scenario where some of these people who own this property are living abroad, and you know what is happening to them? They are being violated by the Seventh Amendment, which should not even be spoken about or even be mentioned about because they have an alienable right to this country and a right to come home and participate in elections as a right as the Constitution says, and Mr. Bradley had expressed it before, that is the right for our Constitution that all Belizeans should have a piece of land. So whether you owe taxes or not, there should be exemption from senior citizens who have served in government or in other forms to society. Now, I want to talk about dealing with this hospital and this piece of land because I look at it as though the same way you want to use compulsory takeover and go between two private entities, you could have used eminent domain to take the piece of land and pay redress for it. But I have mentioned on this show on more than one occasion why these things happen. Because we do not have a campaign financing law. And we will never know how much money was donated by the person who that land was bought from or any other entity.
Or how much money
But
that person really got.
I want to say this to the people at home and abroad. We are back in privatization, and you should know what I mean when I say that. Because we are dealing with a government, whenever they get into power, all they do is privatization, and at the end of their departure, the Belizean people will be
Worst
left
off.
with an enormous bill like the super bond to pay. I turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Uh, Thank you very much. On that point, Greg, about the super bond, we are now up to about 1.75 billion dollars. $1.75 billion in addition to our regular budgetary constraints or expenditures over the last 4 years. Imagine each year out of those 4 years, our budget was somewhere between $2 and $3 billion. Of course, it has increased now, but let's use it as an average $3 billion. 3 times 4 is 12. The present government in power has used $12 billion approximately, plus or minus, right? Because we're using wrong numbers for discussion purposes, through our normal budgetary process. In addition to all the money that they have borrowed or that they have gotten as supplementals to our budget, which is not part of the regular budgetary constraints or expenditures.
Mr. Brackett,
So
if I
now,
may,
go ahead, sir.
first of all, let me say this. I know you listen to the State of the Nation campaign speech because that is what that was. That is what I call it. Likewise, the speech given by the Prime Minister at the UN that said nothing about the incursion in the Sarassoon where that should have been mentioned.
Exactly.
I call the State of the Nation speech a campaign finance speech because everything that was said in it has to do with the coming general election. And this is not just my belief, it's a proven fact. How can you, as a Prime Minister, talking about the economic boost that Belize has gained, $6 billion, being in denial of 1.7 billion in deficit, and you are talking about giving away tax breaks and concessions
Hundreds of
when
millions
you
of
are failing
dollars.
to realize that countries over the world is run by taxes, and then you are failing to realize that you will not be able to do that because you know why? There's a East Coast strike as we speak in the United States where no container ships or containers are being loaded or offloaded. And who you think that will hurt?
Our economy,
Commodities and
local economy.
products will go up in Belize within the next week or two. Gas prices will go up because again, OPEC raised the barrel of oil by 10%. So the State of the Nation speech has no water in it. There's two things I keep watching with the present government using executive powers. The purchase of that piece of land, over $5 million, he did not go to the House for House approval. Again, in the State of the Nation speech, where he spoke about helping small farmers, only to find out that the small farmers he's talking about should be
Ranchers.
cattle farmers, of which we don't have within our small farmers,
Exactly.
giving away 2 years tax break to cattle farmers. Now tell me who falls under that.
To himself, he giving that tax break to himself and Mr. Mai and other bodies,
And
not to the
even
small
with
people
that,
where they sell to the Mennonites.
you are taking away from the consolidated fund.
Exactly.
Taxes is what run the country. And the government cannot do that. he should have went again to the House to get approval to do that. So this is the kind of changes that we are going through. And I
and it's not,
want people to
Greg.
really look
It's
at
not
what is
like
happening.
he wouldn't have gotten permission from the House because they have a super majority. The guys are just rogue. They're just bullyragging the process and doing what they want to do, and they're operating as if they have no checks or balance. Why? Because we don't have an effective opposition
Because the
to
people
pull them
they
to.
block up
And
my bruise up
yes,
my knee, then I love you eternally. The Belizean people have given these people a stick to break their back
as you said
and
before.
break the country's back. And I just want to interject one thing.
Go ahead.
Wanna see somewhere in a saw report that citrus they make record profits? Why is it that citrus, which used to be a bag of citrus, 100 count, good size orange, because I may get for $8 a market, right? And the health which goes with it, right?
Uh-huh.
And now one lime or squinty lime, that's 75 cents.
If you're
Look at
lucky.
it and see who involved in citrus. Because while the citrus industry seems to have been dismantled and pushed on its knees, maybe the private interest to make their profits.
Uh,
Connect the dots.
the
If it
same
is
per
not so,
Miss
it
Spitz,
ain't
Miss Spitz,
so.
the same person that was managing the citrus industry, that helped to break the back of the citrus industry, control citrus now, and are now producing their own citrus on their one farm and trying to compete with the rest of the citrus industry.
In
Same
corporate law,
individual, the
it's
same
called a
person.
hostile takeover. In the private arena, shark attack shark. But when you have right, government and people and conscience and the health of the nation, I have said it. It seems that for their only plan, for their secret manifesto, that must be that people for dead for young age that believe. That's why they can dismantle hospitals, the private hospitals, and watch it because you be look like somebody they sign some agreement of exchange peace and you be land. And I've said on this program before, the university can always enter agreement and rent at a peppercorn to bona fide, like a project like this hospital. But once you have any surveyor there, na like when Shark here Panades, me not trust that set.
Well,
Me not trust
there are
that set.
people who goes in
They
smalls
want
and big groups,
continue to
and they go
rake
and
and scrape you land like they did the
they go
last
and they
time.
squat on the land, and then the politicians they afford them the privilege to work
Make
to get
them
the
left, they
votes.
keep their hand off of you land, not touch it.
Anyhow, thank you very much for that commenter, Mr. Pitts. Greg,
Sorry, thanks
I'd
for
like to
putting
go
up
back.
with me. I
No
interjected
problem.
Mr. Greg
I'm
when
coming
it
back
was
to you for
my
I'm coming
turn,
back.
no?
I'm coming back to you in a little while, Miss Pitts, for
Mhm.
your last comment of the night. Gonna go to Greg
Thank,
for right
thank
now.
you, Mr. Chairman. But
Greg, did
I
you
would
take
like
about
to
3 4 minutes?
say Ms. Your input is right on the money. Because what we speak about here on this show is nothing but truth, show and tell. And it's obvious that nobody is taking heed to what we're saying. Again, tonight we speak about democracy and a check and balance. And when we look at the opposition party who's in shambles, people seem to want to think that because we do not have opposition, we cannot have democracy. But I want to say this to them, make no stupid mistake, because democracy lies in the supreme law of the land, which is our constitution, which is protected by section 20 and section 1, 2, which speaks for itself. any inconsistent laws is null and void. So make no mistake that democracy is here to stay, regardless of what you might
Cannot
fear.
be written out of existence, at least not yet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you for your wonderful, eloquent commentary and observation, and elucidating the general public in regards to some of these technical legal matters. Thank you again, Ms. Pitts, for doing the same. We'd like to ask that you take these 3 minutes or so and do your final commentary if you would care. Ms. Pitts? Sharon, for like 3 minutes more? Final
When
commentary?
there was a certain presentation about the Constitution publicly, one of the presenters used as an example of where you have your right to your property constitutionally protected. And I was taken aback, we were taken aback that he used an example, well, government or the city council could sell land when people not pay their tax. We raised the alarm. We said that it wasn't directly like that and it shouldn't be. Before the end of the year, and Mr. Greg, if you can check it, please, if you think it's important, there was something that came out as to how many lots, if they're not 200 or 2,000, that them people say they want to sell. But you see how that the constitution was used and bastardized and attacked.
The land they
And
sell
you
to
see,
themselves.
they have this our clear example that FIDE experiment and FIDE attack on the constitution have nothing to do with the interest of the people of country, I believe. And the very thing that is a shield and a protection, then they try unravel.
Dismantle it.
Have
Thank you very
heart,
much.
have conscience, left the people alone, pretend to be decent. Wanna have lot of time and lot of manpower, woman power. And if you don't need advice, you have a lot of Belizeans out there well thinking who could step outside of the political quicksand and the political expedient and the political spray and game, who have the heart of this country and can offer if called upon. But even if not called upon, you will not beat up conscience in belief. Because that's a way under attack now. Conscience. Good night, Belizean.
Thank you very much for such a lucid presentation and the additional commentary and clarification. I hope that our Belizean, Ms. Pitts, thank you very much, ma'am, again. Um, I hope Belizeans at home and abroad, as I had mentioned at the beginning of this particular program, that some positive public benefit would have accrued to you all as a result of hearing this particular program. It is my belief that unless people take their valuable time and listen to programs like these, they are missing out on how to understand what's happening to us in Belize. We know we have a problem. In fact, we know we have a lot of different problems. We are not sure how to deal with them. And we have a bunch of bamboozlers and jackals, hyenas, vultures. You know, I mean, people who are just, they have no regards, respect, or consideration for themselves, much less anybody else. But they are the people that we have running our system of governance. They make excuses when they fail miserably. They blame other people. They make excuses for their own colleagues. But then they turn around and say, for example, in the case of the Minister of Police, he might say that if anybody commit the crime and the police officers then arrest them, the the people now have to prove that they didn't commit the crime. They have to prove themselves innocent, rather than the opposite way, how the Constitution says that you're innocent until proven guilty or declared guilty. But now when one of his colleagues getting a problems, when they find drug in a one boat, one private boat, whether it was put there by somebody else to set him up or not, he should have been hauled in like all the other Belizeans who have been hauled in when they find one bullet in their house or one gun or whatever, and they haul the whole family and inconvenience the whole family. But that same logic didn't apply to them, and they didn't look at it like that. They say, well, maybe there's somebody putting on the man thing, which is also valid. But why can't you use that same logic when you go addressing those kind of concerns to families, that you go and invade their house, and sometimes when you drop bulletin at the people in their house, if you pick it up, so you could say, well, that's the basis why you decide to arrest them after you don't brutalize them. You don't want to sue, so when you drop bullet, pick it up and accuse them that, well, under the bogus law that you have to arrest everybody in the house, and then the minister of police will say, well, everybody have to go to jail because they have to find out who did it, and if the person who did it no claim or give up himself, then everybody must suffer. I would beg to say that that kind of mindset should be applied to our minister Otaki. Why should he have been given the benefit of the doubt to say he normally used that with the body system, that's why he got left in a boat? That there's somebody else, they have to come up with an idea now that there's somebody else where the police get information from, see them people they gone and put it in at the man place. I mean, come on, you can have it both ways. But nevertheless, I hope that our program for tonight, or 202nd program for tonight, has accrued to some public benefit to the Belizean people. Thanks, Ms. Spitz, again for your great contribution, ma'am.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Mr. Brackett, Gregory, for your contribution as well, sir, and everything that both of you bring to the table every time you are part of our panel. I was the chairman for tonight. I didn't get to talk as much as I normally would because these two gentlemen and lady are well versed in the subject matters and have brought us and helped us to achieve a very sound and solid program for tonight. Thank them, and I thank you all for sparing and spending your valuable time to listen to what we had to offer. God bless Belize and Belizeans at home and abroad, always. Good night.
Good night. Good night.